Welcome to this video on Apigee Proxy unit testing using a tool called API Tester. So let's jump right in. Apigee, of course, is an intelligent API management and proxy platform. You can run all kinds of APIs and endpoints through Apigee. They can be very intelligent. They can include, validation, security, integration policies. So there's lots of stuff you can do within Apigee proxies. On the other hand, we have API Tester, which is an open source project that was recently created based on some customer projects. It's a tool designed for testing both APIs, but also doing detailed proxy unit tests. There's a shared flow to integrate directly into Apigee, to an Apigee environment to help do those proxy unit tests. And here's the source code link, so feel free to take a look and create any issues or help with the development. The workflow looks like this, that the user basically can submit tests through either a web client or a REST call. Tests are either YAML or JSON documents. The API tester service needs to run somewhere. There might be a CLI version in the future, but at the moment it needs to run, for example, in Cloud Run. When tests are received, they're executed. Then, if they go to an Apigee endpoint, then we can do the detailed proxy unit tests using the shared flow. And if they go to just a normal API endpoint that's not Apigee, we can just do normal API tests, right? So validating headers and response data and so on. All of the results are aggregated and then sent back to the client or to the REST caller. So let's jump into a live demo and see it in action. To start off with, we're going to go to the web client. There's a publicly available version at tdd.upstr.dev. We can create a new test suite and test it out. So here we are at the website for API Tester. If we look here, there's some information about it. Also at the bottom, there's just a command to do a simple API test, just stateless using a curl command, or to do a proxy unit test as well using a curl command. So, and this will just go to the publicly available test server, but of course you could do this on your own test server as well. So let's go ahead and create a test suite by clicking the button. When we create a suite, we get an admin test suite ID. This is like a secret that you can always use to either run tests or edit tests or to view the results. If you just take the first four sections of it, that's the view ID. So if you send that link to someone, they can only view the results, but they can't change anything. If you have the full ID, you can actually change things and run tests. The link here is the admin link with the full ID. So let's go ahead and open that up. When we open up the dashboard, we have a link to the dashboard, to the public link. So that's only with the first, the view ID. We're in the admin section, so we can do everything, right? We can export all the files, so both the test definitions and all the results. We see the last run for a test. When we created this, this is just a simple test to the public mock target apigee.net endpoint, where we validate some of the response data as well as the response header. And it already does a run, like a test run for us at the beginning, right? So we see the results already. This was just, run. If we run it again, we'll see the results are updated. If we change the test to say, hey, the content length should be 64, and run it again, we'll have one test has failed. And then we can open up the detailed report and see all of the runs for this test, right? To see, okay, here, the test was run, this one failed, the content length is 68, it's not 64, so that one has failed. We also get all of the metadata from the call, so the response code, the headers, and the content. And then we see all of the past runs as well, right? It used to be successful, and then just recently it started failing. So that's just a simple overview of the web client. Now let's jump into testing Apigee proxies. So here we are in the Google Cloud console. So I have the Apigee section opened here to the shared flows section. I have cloned the API tester repository here into my Cloud Shell, haven't made any changes. And I set two environment variables for both my project ID and for my environment in Apigee where I want to run the tests. So as a first step, let's go ahead and create the shared flow. And this is in the tutorial to say, okay, let's use Apigee CLI to create the shared flow. It's going to just take it from this repository. So the definition is there on the shared flow bundle directory. And it's going to add it to our project and our environment. So this is now deployed. It'll take a few minutes or a little while, a couple seconds to deploy. You see that it's been added here, V1. It's in the process of deploying to our default dev environment. In the meantime, let's get the commands ready to add this to the flow hooks for our environment. So what are flow hooks? Flow hooks are visible here under environments. This basically tells Apigee to always run a certain shared flow uh, at either pre-proxy, pre-target, post-target, post-proxy. This is a really super useful feature in Apigee, right? To have like enforce standard, something to happen before a proxy or after a proxy. So we're going to use this to enforce or to do our unit tests on the proxies. We're going to set the pre-proxy and the post-proxy flows. These Apigee CLI commands here will just do that, right? They'll attach to the pre-proxy and post-proxy our SF tester v1 shared flow in both cases. Why do we need both? The reason is that we can, in our test cases, set variables as test data before the proxy is run. And then, of course, in post-proxy, we can do assertions and validations, right? So we really have the capabilities to set all kinds of test data as variables and then validate variables and any other traffic data in the post flow as well. So let's go ahead and run these. Yes, so both of them are successful. If we do a refresh here on environments and flow hooks for default dev, then we'll see that those two commands set those flow hooks to our SF tester v1. Great, so with that, we're ready now to deploy a test proxy. This is also in our repository. We just run this apigee CLI command to deploy the API proxy directory as a proxy apigee mock proxy v1. And it's going to go ahead and deploy it into our environment as well. So let's go ahead and run that. So it's been deployed and imported. If we go to API proxies, we will now see the Apigee mock proxy v1 is here. It's also in the process of being deployed. If we look in the development tab, we can see exactly what it does. It's just for test purposes. In the pre-flow, we have a policy to set variables. And this basically just checks a test.name variable and writes it into a test.message, right, as a hello message to that user. So just a simple test, and this test name we can pass in as some of our test data, and then validate that the test message is in fact set correctly. So with that, let's go ahead and start a debug session. Once this is deployed, if we say yes, do the version 1. And so now we have a debug session running. Another thing we do need is to get the Apigee host name from our environment group. So this Apigee CLI command will do that. Let's get the Apigee host. And then let's run a first test. So this curl command will do a test on just the Apigee mock target. So without going through our proxy, it's just going to validate the first name, the city, and the response data. And we see that, okay, that was run on our test server. All 4 tests were passed. Now let's run a proxy test. And so this is going to use our test here with our shared flow. So this is going to send a test posted to the exact same URL. The only difference is that we're targeting an Apigee proxy here with our Apigee host. This will pass in a test ID, and that shared flow will pick it up and then set our variables here as test data. So the test.name will be set as test123. And in our assertions at the end, we're going to validate that test message is correctly set. Right. So let's go ahead and run this. And we see that, okay, we're doing 6 tests. All 6 were successful. And in fact, yes, the hello test123 did in fact match. And we see exactly here in the debug trace how our shared flow did its work. There's some JavaScript policies that do the testing. And so then everything was executed automatically based on that shared flow configuration. So thank you very much for your interest in this topic. If you have questions, just reach out in the comments.